Welcome to the webinar on Java EE6 webinar series from JPassion.com. Today is the first day on JSF 2.0, so we're going to cover JSF 2.0 basics and JSF 2.0 template and composite components and JSF 2.0 Ajax. I assume you have some knowledge on JSF, so I'm not going to talk about JSF basic concept, except couple of slides. Mostly we're going to actually talk about newly added features in JSF 2.0. Okay, so let's move on to the presentation. By the way, I'm going to take the questions at the end. So these are the topics that we are going to cover in this JSF basics presentation. Bean declaration, navigation, facelets, and view parameters, and flash scope and validation. Next week, we are going to cover composite components and templates, which are pretty important subject on its own. So these are the set of features, major features of JSF 2.0. It's annotation based, meaning you don't have to have faces config.xml file anymore, even though it is still supported. And it does support easy navigation. So we're going to see example of this one in a few minutes, which means that you don't have to specify your navigation rule in faces config.xml file anymore in most cases, because JSF will select the default view based on the outcome of your action. And page description language now is Facelet, is the preferred page description language as opposed to JSF. JSP is still supported, but is definitely a second-class citizen as far as JSF 2.0 is concerned. JSF 2.0 now supports flash scope. And as I said, the templating and composite components will be covered next week. Again, templating and composite components are very important topics. And now Ajax is very well integrated with JSF 2.0. You don't have to do any hack anymore to have Ajax support. So the third, the JSF topic is going to be JSF 2.0 Ajax. So we are going to cover up to this point flash scope and okay, so this picture shows JSF architecture. JSF is based on MVC framework, model view controller. So faces servlet plays the role of controller, and managed beans play the role of models. And then JSF architecture in the beginning was designed to be very modular, so you can actually pick and choose your favorite renderer and plug in. So even in JSF 1.0, old JSF, people were using facelets because it's easy enough to plug in different renderer. In that case, it's faces renderer. So the XHTML, that's a faceless renderer, JSP renderer, Zool renderer. You can have other renderers, so it's actually pluggable. Okay, let's move on with the bean declaration. Suppose if you have a facelet code in which you are accessing a bean using this notation, the expression, the language notation. So here you are accessing a managed bean called login. So in JSF 1.0, old JSF, you had to specify the managed bean, every managed bean in the faces config XML file. Okay. In JSF 2.0, you don't need to specify those managed beans in the XML file anymore. Instead, you are going to specify it with using annotation. So JSF, it has annotation called @managedBean. Okay. However, if you have CDI, if you're using Java EE6 platform, you should have a CDI. And in that case, using @named annotation is preferred because @named is a standard-based the naming convention as far as the CDI is concerned. So both managed bean annotation, @named annotation, both of them should be able to be used in JSF 2.0 application. Navigation. So as I said, implicit navigation is now supported. Pretty much all the modern framework, all modern web application frameworks support implicit navigation for a long time, in fact. What it means is that default view is going to be selected based on the name of the outcome of an action. Okay. Uh, JSF 2.0 also support the conditional navigation, and you will see an example in the following slide. And there is a class called the configurable navigation handler. So from this object of this class, you can actually query navigation rules during runtime. So this is an example of implicit navigation. Suppose you have a command button here, and if the button is pressed, it will typically call the action method of a method of a class, and that action method will generate an outcome. Or in this case, we just kind of hard coded the name of the outcome, in this case, next. Okay, so regardless whether this action is the hard-coded value like this, which is very rare, or outcome from a method, action method, that outcome will be chosen as the name of the view. Okay, so in JSF 1.0, you had to specify these navigation rules in faces config.xml file. In JSF 2.0, no more. Again, JSF 2.0 runtime will choose the value of this outcome, and then we'll select next.xhtml facelet file as a view, as a default view. Of course, you can change it if you want to, okay? But as a default, it will just take the outcome of an action and we'll just choose the facelet of that name. This is an example of conditional navigation. So this is in fact, if you want to support, if you want to have conditional navigation logic in your application, then you have to specify that conditional navigation logic in the faces config.xml file. So this is one example. You might have to use a faces config.xml file. So in this case, this is the from view, and then this is the if logic. Okay, so when the result of or the value of order quantity is less than 100, then you want to display the facelet. Okay. This is another example. So if payment controller register completed, if it returns true, then you want to display this view, payment.xhtml. Okay, so conditional logic could be conditional navigation logic could be specified in faces config.xml file. Okay, moving forward, facelets. So facelet was designed for JSF from the beginning. That's the reason, in fact, even in JSF 1.0, facelets was gaining a lot of actually support from developer community because it addresses the problems using JSP with the JSF. So JSP and JSF, because they have two different life cycle models, so JSF has 6 different phases and JSP is a lot simpler, and those life cycles do not match, and it could actually cause very the obscure and problems during runtime. So that's the reason Facelet was designed to address those problems. Now, Facelet become part of the JSF 2.0. Okay, so pretty much all the Facelet technology that was present even in JSF 1.0 days is actually pretty much the same features in JSF 2.0. So whatever JSF, whatever facelet code that you used to have in JSF 1.0, you should be able to use with the JSF 2.0 without a problem. So just a little bit of explanation, the overview of facelet. So again, it is a preferred view technology in JSF 2.0. So any new features moving forward in the future, all the enhancements will be happening only on facelet, not on JSP. Okay. So as I said before, JSP is strongly discouraged to be used with the JSF application. And again, even though it's being supported, and again, moving forward, all the new features will be on facelet. Is XHTML based file, which means that document validation is possible using XML tools. And pages are usable from popular HTML editors. So there are HTML editors such as a Dreamweaver. Now you should be able to use JSF 2.0 facelet file in these editors. And it wasn't, it is not possible to use these editors with JSP. That's in fact one of the problems developer community or designer community were complaining about. It does support better error handling, including line numbers, and you can also use expression language in Facelet page, just like what you have seen before. And again, the two actually important features of Facelet is templating and composite components. Okay, so these two features are in fact from Facelet. Again, we are going to talk about these two features in detail next week. So this is a Facelet example. So here we have the namespace, and then we use the tags. Okay, so we input text and command button, and we use expression language notation. Okay, so these are not probably that much unfamiliar to most of you. All right, so let's take a look at the first exercise. So what we are going to do is we are going to do guess number sample application that comes with, in fact, the JSF package and Java E6 example package. So let's run this code. So this is a very simple application. So it's asking you to guess a number between this 2 and 8. So if I guess a number 5, and if it is a correct number, if it is not the correct number, I say, it says, sorry, 5 is incorrect, and 6, and incorrect, and 4, incorrect. All right, I'm going to try one more, and then we're going to move on. Okay, so it's the incorrect. Maybe it's 2 or 7 or whatever. Now, if you place a number, if you actually place a number that is beyond this range, like a 9, and then you're going to see this error message right here. So it's a very simple application. So let's see the code. So let's take a look at the web.xml file first of all. So you can see it does have a Faces servlet playing the role of controller. Okay, and the first page you see is a greeting.xhtml file. So let me just maximize this. And so we have input text element here, and the ID is user number, and the value is from bean's user number. So that's the reason, this value is actually coming from the bean. Okay, and actually, I want to actually show this one first. So we have a graphics image, and then value and resource, and here. So this notation in JSF 2.0, it does have the resources directory. Okay, so in fact, when you're using these resources, it will take a look at the resources directory on the web INF, and even in class path, if there is in fact the these files, and this file image is a relative path. So in this case, we have a relative path images, and we have this file. Okay, so it's displaying this Duke image. And then the message is this message. I'm thinking of a number between 2 and 8 in this case. So that is coming from a property minimum of the bean and the maximum property of user number bean. Okay. All right, now again, this user number is actually from user number property. Of user number bean is being displayed here, and then we also have a validation long range. So this is this validation long range is the one that actually check whether you entered a correct validation, the number in the right range or not. And then we click submit. And then it's going to call response. Okay, so in this case, again, it's hard coded. Typically, what you want to do is you want to use this kind of notation, like a user number bean, and then a method, and the method will return some outcome, and that is the one that you are going to use in most of the cases. Here we hard coded action. So what it means is that the response.xhtml file will be selected as a view. Okay, and this one is an error message. So in this case, so what it does is that is you want to display error messages of user number item, which means that any error messages associated with this input text element will be displayed here. Okay, so if you take a look at the response.xhtml file, again, it displays the Duke image, and then it displays the response message. So the response property contains either, the sorry, some number is incorrect, or yeah, that number is correct. So one of those two messages will be set depending on whether number is correctly cast or not. So that message is being displayed right here, and then we have the back button, and then action is again hard-coded. So in this case, quitting that XHTML file will be again displayed. Faces config.xml file, this is null. I mean, we don't have to have even this file right here, but we have a file here, but it has nothing. And now let's take a look at the code. So we need the managed bean. So managed bean is user number bean. So we should have several properties, right? User number property, response property, minimum property, and maximum property. So as you can see, these properties, minimum and maximum, is set to 2 and 8. That's the reason we're actually seeing this 2 and 8, okay? Because that property values are in fact being retrieved in the view and be displayed, okay? And then we have basically getter and setter method, okay? All right, so very simple code. All right, moving forward. View parameters. So view parameters are the concept. This feature is inspired by page parameters from JBoss theme. It provides a way to map request parameters to special component within the view. Okay? So let me show the code. So let's say we have the world property in my hello bean. Okay? So this word is a property. What we want to do is we want to set this property from incoming request parameters. So that's the reason, that's the time that you want to use this view param. So suppose you have received this request parameters, world equal Korea, okay? And if you want to set this world property of this bean, then you can specify it using view param, the name. This name specifies the query param's key. Okay, and then whatever value of this key, in this case Korea, will be set into this property. Okay, so later on you can actually access that property. Okay, so in this case it will display Korea. Okay, so let's try exercise 3, which is running view param. So this is the case. This code is the same code. Okay, so this is the code. So let me show this code. This code doesn't have view param. Okay, so it doesn't have any view param, but and then it will just display the world property of my hello. So if you take a look at the world property, it is set with hello world. So this is what gets displayed in this case. Okay, so run. Okay. Now, even if you actually pass the world equal Korea, it will not display anything because the query parameters are not being actually captured. Okay. So this is the next code here using view parameters. Is exactly the same code, but this time what we have is this view param. Okay. So now we are capturing world the query param value and set it into this world property of my hello. Okay, so in this case, if you run the code, it will still play hello world for now. But if I pass world Korea, then it should display Korea right here. Okay, if I display something else like Boston, then it should display Boston. Okay, if I provide a different value like world xxx, okay, which is not the correct key value, then of course it will display the old existing value, which is hello world. Okay, Okay, so that's view param. Flash scope. So flash scope was popularized by Rails. It's basically a short-lived scope. So the whatever value that you set in flash scope will be visible on the subsequent request and response cycle, including redirect, because redirect is basically the subsequent request cycle, and then it's going to be cleared. Okay. It's very useful whenever you want to pass in something like, whatever request has been successful or not. Okay, so it's just an indication of previous request cycle, whether that has been successful or not, and after that it gets cleared. Okay, so that is Flash scope. So how to use Flash scope? So basically, all you have to do is using Flash, and basically you are going to display the property of Flash scope using this notation. Okay, so this Flash scope is built in. The way you can set Flash attribute is from the faces context object, you have a current object, and then you are going to get Flash object, and then Flash object you're going to set the whatever key value pairs like this. Okay, and then you can specify the value using this notation. Okay. All right, so let's do Flash exercise. So let me show the code. Yeah, so in this case, we are not using Java code to set the Flash scope attribute. So we are using the JSTL cset tag to set the property name is foo and value is foo value. Okay, into Flash scope. So we are basically setting Flash scope here. Okay, and then we have a button. So when we click the next XHTML. Next HTML is displaying the full value of the Flash scope. Okay. Now, if I refresh this page, that is the third request cycle. So the Flash value will be disappeared. Okay. So let's run that code. So so at this point, Flash scope full value is set to full value. Okay. So if I click this one, this is the next the request cycle. So you can see full value is actually this full value is being displayed. Okay, so this means this is being on. This is actually this contains the right value, full value. Okay, now if I refresh this page, then that means it's another cycle. In that case, there is going to be nothing. So in this case, nothing. The Flash scope is gone. I mean, the Flash full value is gone. Okay, so very simple example in this case. So if I just change this one to something else, I'm going to just change it to Boston. Okay, and again, if I run this code again, the value is set. Well, it's not full value, it's set to Boston. Now, if you click this one, that is the subsequent request cycle, which can access the Flash scope value, which you can see is Boston. Now, if I refresh this one, that's subsequent cycle, so that's the reason you don't see the value in the Flash scope anymore. Okay. Okay, so that is a Flash scope. Let's move forward. Validation. So just like modern frameworks, JSF has pretty extensive validation. It does support with the JSR 303 bean validation as well. So we'll talk about the JSR 303 bean validation in the following slide. So it does in fact have a default validator for all editable value holder. Okay, so like a text field or text area or something like that. And it does support pre-validate and post-validate system events. Okay? And you can also have a tags, validate bean, validate required, validate regular expression. Okay, so this is actually default. So if you don't, I mean, this is actually used when you actually want to fine tune, for example, like a binding. But if you're not doing those kind of advanced validation, then this is kind of assumed. Okay, validate required and request. Yeah, so pretty simple set of tags. JSR 303 is called a bean validation. So it defines a generic tier-independent mechanism for specifying data validation constraints. What it means is that now you can specify the validation logic inside your bean. Okay, and that bean, whether that is used in JSF web tier, such as JSF 2.0, or let's say JPA tier, the validation will be handled in the right context. Okay, so that's the reason it's actually called the tier independent mechanism for specifying data validation constraint, because validation is specified inside the bean, and the bean could be used in different tiers. So by using annotation, you can specify the validation logic for the properties of that bean. For example, like a not null, the property cannot be null. It specifies the size constraint and minimum, maximum constraint. Okay, you can also specify the custom constraint as well. So JSF 2.0 supports this JSR 3.3 bean validation as a built-in. Okay, so when you're using bean validation in your application, JSF automatically uses the constraints for the beans specified with these kind of notations that are referenced by UI input values. Okay, so all right, so this is an example. So in this case, we have a managed bean called a sample bean, and has three properties: email, username, and password. So email, the validation logic is the size has to be minimum 1, and this message is that whenever there is a validation error, this message will get displayed. Well, this message will be actually added to some errors array. Okay. And the pattern, so you can specify regular expression pattern here as well. So you can specify the email pattern, okay, which has all alphanumeric characters, and you have to have this @ sign. And here you can specify the size. The username has to be minimum 5 and maximum 20. And again, this is the error message, okay, that gets generated when there is the validation error. Same thing here. Okay. All right, so let's do validation. So this is email. So first of all, if I don't enter anything, then the email format is invalid. Please enter email. Please enter these things. Okay. If I enter incorrect the email format, then it says email format is invalid. Okay. As far as username, again incorrect the size, that will actually keep displaying these things. Okay. So this time let's actually enter correct email format. And it has to be 5 to 20. This one, and this one is 5 and 10. Okay, and yeah, so it worked okay. So this is actually from the response page. Okay, all right. So if you take a look at the this bean validation logic here, it's pretty simple. So we have a bean validation, and we just have this JSR 303, the validation annotations. Okay, so this is the same thing that we have seen in the presentation. Size annotation and size annotation for password as well. Okay. Okay, moving forward. Redirection. So redirection is, oh, I'm sorry, I think I got actually, sorry about that. I think the slide was actually incorrectly created. So the way that you are going to use redirection, so I'm going to actually show the sample code. Typically, you want to make sure that redirection is used whenever you make a change on the backend side. Okay, so by the way, let me actually show you how you can actually do the redirection. Okay, I'm going to actually use the yeah, so this sample application, what we're going to do is we are going to create an items and save into the database. Okay, and so once you enter an item, the new book item, this gets displayed. This is a case that we are not actually using redirection. So in this case, if you actually refresh the page, it will actually send the request one more time to the server, which means that you are actually duplicating post requests, okay, which is not really desirable. Okay, so let's actually run that code. Okay, and so to solve that problem, you want to actually use the redirection. So I'm going to show that code in a few minutes. So this is the case. This is a code that is not using redirection. Okay. So I am creating a book. So title is JPassion, and the price is $23. Description XXX. Number of pages 34, something like that. And let's create a book. Okay. So book has been created, and then you have this page displayed. Okay. Now this has not been this page has not been actually result of redirection. So if I refresh the page, okay, this will in fact invoke the another post request. Okay, so let's actually take a look. Before we do that, let's take a look at the database. Okay, so go to the database, connect, and we have tables. So this book. So this is the book that we just have created. Okay, description here and 34 price here. Okay. This and the title is JPassion, $23. This is the book we just created, but if I refresh this page, and this is what happens when the user is gonna actually just refresh the page when there is actually some slow response and things like that. If I refresh the page, then and then what will happen is if I refresh this database, it will create the second item. So this is the famous the infamous actually the double submit problem of typical web application. Every web application has this issue. Okay, so how to solve this problem? To solve this problem is actually using redirect. The reason this is actually creating even though you are actually seeing different pages, this URL is still pointing this page. Okay, so if you refresh, this will be sent one more time. Okay, so what you want to do is redirect into a page, which is actually get. Okay, so this is again typical redirection issues. So this is the case. So every web application, you want to actually redirect for every post. Okay, so this is the case. We have redirect. The way that you are going to redirect is, let me see. Okay, so let me actually show which. Okay, here, so this is the code. So instead of just passing this page, oh, actually, this is the old code, which has a redirection problem. Let me see, I have that code. Looks like I don't have that code. So I'm going to actually show you. So this is the item beans.js. So item beans.xml file. Okay. So when creating a book, this is the case I'm redirecting. So let me show the code that is not redirecting. All right, so this is a case, when the book has been created, it just returns this one, okay, without redirection. So this is the outcome, and this is the new book created XHTML file will be actually displayed, okay. However, because the URL is still pointing to the post page, when a user refresh the page, this do create book will be created. It will be invoked one more time, and it will be created. It will be actually invoked repeatedly. Okay, so in order to solve that problem, basically you are going to use the redirection. So for JSF 2.0, the way that you are going to do redirection is using faces redirect equal true. Okay, so if you actually add this one, then redirection will be happened, meaning it will send the browser to send another request to this page, and this page is just the page that gets displayed the items. Okay, so let's run this code. Okay, so this time let's say Sandy, and price is $1,000, and description is whatever. Number of pages 3. Create a book. Now here, here, even if you refresh the page, so I'm going to actually refresh the page. I can refresh multiple times. And you know, if I take a look at the book database table, you are going to see just one items. Okay, so there is no repetition of the same post. Okay, because it has been redirected. And redirected page is just this page, and this page, even though I'm actually clicking this page, whatever that you know, what is coming from the client is HTTP GET. Okay, so it's not going to actually make any changes on the server side. Okay. All right, so hopefully that gives you a sense of the redirection and how we can do redirection in JSF 2.0. All right, so that is pretty much what I have. So let me